Well, hi, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to our second edition of Breaking News for this Friday. It's the 23rd day of May, 2025, and we have six quick stories to bring to you that are very important, that are again setting the stage for what the Bible has to say our world will look like at the time of the end of this age, before the second coming of Jesus Christ. Now, our top story is what took place today in the discussions between the U.S. and Iran with respect to Iran's nuclear program. First, we get the U.S. point of view. This is from the Times of Israel. A senior U.S. official said, progress made in fifth round of Iran talks, but still work to be done. Okay. And from the Times of Israel, we have the Iranian point of view. After fifth round of nuclear talks, Iran says discussions with U.S. are complicated. All right. That's all we got from each side. The Gatestone Institute really has said it all. This is their headline. I love this. Do not be fooled by Iran. What they really want is to destroy America. Israel is just in the way. Interesting take on this. All right, Israel is moving forward with in the work in Gaza right now. They plan to confine Hamas's control to a small area of the important town of Khan Younis. They're moving everybody away from one small little area. And basically, what they're doing is dividing and conquering. This is from YNET. It's a very important story. Now, along this line, we have another important, that was from YNET, another important story from Israel National News. Ambassador Huckabee says to Arutz Sheva, the U.S. won't tell Israel how to fight its wars. Love it, and that's the way it should be. And finally, a huge story. This turns out to be true. Erdogan, the leader of Turkey, according to Israel HaYom, said he's not planning another term as president. All right, we will see. He wants to be the Sultan of the whole Middle East, and so maybe he wants to be more than president of Turkey, but that's the story that came out today. Again, we'll keep that one in mind. So let's look at these. All right, headline number one, senior U.S. official. Progress made in fifth round of Iran talks, but still work to be done, from the Times of Israel. A senior Trump administration official said the fifth round of nuclear talks between the U.S. and Iran earlier today in Rome were constructive. We made further progress, but there is still work to be done. The official tells reporters in a statement, adding that both sides agreed to meet again in the near future. The U.S. was represented in the talks by Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, and State Department Policy Planning Director Michael Anton. The talks lasted over 2 hours, the official says, adding that they once again had direct and indirect components, which were mediated by Oman. All right, now we look at the Iranian side. What do they say? After fifth round of nuclear talks, Iran says discussions with U.S. are complicated. Again, from the Times of Israel, Oman's foreign minister says some but not conclusive progress made in negotiations. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said Friday that Tehran's discussions with the United States over its nuclear program were complicated as the fifth rounds of talks concluded in Rome. The negotiations are too complicated to be resolved in 2 or 3 meetings, said Araghchi, who leads the Iranian negotiation team in the talks mediated by Oman. He said the potential for progress is there after Oman made several new proposals. All right, I don't know about you. You getting a little tired of all this progress being made? Each side has said they have these red lines. No enrichment of uranium, period. Not, zero from the United States. That's what they say. That's our red line. We've got you're not going to be able to enrich uranium ever again, Iran. Iran says no, that's all right. It's a non-starter if you say we can't enrich uranium. This is the red lines each of them said, as Khomeini said, who we mentioned earlier today. It doesn't seem like there could be a deal done. It really doesn't seem like it. So what in the world are they talking about? What progress is being made? It seems really beyond ridiculous. And so this is typical for Iran. They stretch it out, give indications they might be interested in something, all the time working on the enrichment of uranium, where they want to build a bomb. And like we said, they have delivery systems. They have 30 to 50 missiles that can go 3,000 kilometers that could, contain a nuclear weapon if one was ready to go. So we'll see. It just keeps going on and on and on. All right. We don't make these stories up. We just bring them to you, by the way. All right. So, headline number three. I like this one from Gatestone. Don't be fooled by Iran. What they really want is to destroy America. Israel is just in the way. The real Nakba, or that means catastrophe for the Palestinians, was that they started a war and lost it. Well, if you start a war, that's what can happen. The Trump administration to be aware of countries where the mouth says one thing, but the legs do the opposite. Believe the legs. The Iranians and Palestinians have not given up on the dream of eliminating Israel and America. The Trump administration should also realize that the Palestinian Iranian leaders tell Westerners one thing, what they like to hear in English, while addressing their people with completely different messages in Arabic and Farsi. Believe the Arabic and Farsi. We've been saying that for years. Yasser Arafat would tell one story, former leader of the PLO, in English to the Americans and the Western world, and then he'd tell a whole other story in Arabic, and we would always try and report what he really meant, what he told the people in Arabic. But the same thing's going on here with Iran and with the Palestinians. He says, Mahmoud Abbas has long been telling Westerners about his desire to make peace and establish a Palestinian state next to Israel. At the same time, he keeps calling for Israel's destruction. Remember, he's supposed to be the moderate one, the head of the Palestinian Authority. Iran's leaders do the same thing. President Masoud Pezeshkian reassures Americans, we are not seeking war. We favor negotiation and dialogue. Meanwhile, Khamenei calls for the elimination of the Zionist regime and endorses death to America. The Palestinians and Iran's mullahs believe that Americans and most Westerners are gullible enough to unreservedly swallow any lie. They have so often done this in the past, and this is so very true. It is time for the Trump administration and other Westerners to see that the Palestinians and the Iranian regime do not want Israel or America in the Middle East, period, and are prepared to do anything to achieve this goal, including with nuclear weapons. Great story from Gatestone Institute, and so this one tells it like it is. All right, headline number 4. Let's go to Israel now, because what they're doing, they're getting very tough now with Hamas, and they're basically keeping them in smaller areas and bringing them to smaller areas, basically doing the divide and conquer. And today, headline number 4, IDF plans to confine Hamas's control to a small area in Khan Younis. This is from YNET. Senior commanders say Hamas must be pressured into a ceasefire, recognizing no other options. As the offensive continues, IDF officials warn that internal political strife could undermine the battlefield gains. You got a lot of these leftists here in Israel. Stop the war at any cost. Stop it now. Stop. Bring back the hostages. Well, again, you can't stop the war when the Hamas is going to continue to fight. You wish you could, but these people do not think like normal people think. They've got a martyr complex. They would rather die for their beliefs, and particularly the leaders who are in Doha, who are in Qatar, who are living in five-star hotels, calling the shots there, and having their people become cannon fodder there in Gaza. Anyway, after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu outlined his demand for an end to the war, and in fact distanced any chance for a ceasefire in the fighting in Gaza, the military pushed on its offensive on the Strip. The top military brass insists that the IDF offensive must be in the service of releasing the hostages held by Hamas since the October 7th massacre, in addition to destroying the terror group's ability to control Gaza. That's what it's all about now. How do you do that? You go into these areas like Khan Younis. This is one of the 0.0 center points, as it were, main points of contention there in Gaza. And what they did the last time, they did a lot of destruction, but then they left. And Hamas, of course, can build up. Now they're staying there, and they're starting to divide some of the areas, moving the Palestinian people south, making sure they're out of harm's way, and basically taking on Hamas where there won't be any more territory left. And that's the way they're doing it. Now, this next headline is great because it says what we want to hear from the United States. This is Mike Huckabee, love him, Bible-believing Christian who is the ambassador of the United States to Israel. He said the Israel National News, Arutz Sheva, the U.S. won't tell Israel how to fight its wars. U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee sits down with Arutz Sheva to discuss the U.S.-Israel relationship, Trump's feelings about the war, Iran, and more. Here's what it says. Turning to the rumors about the president's dissatisfaction with the way the Israeli government is handling the war in Gaza, Huckabee explains that while everyone, including the president and Israel, are fed up with the war, isn't that the truth? The reason it keeps going is that Hamas won't come to the conclusion that what the president has laid out for them. You're not going to have a future here. You're not going to govern and rule here. You're not going to be militarized here. That's what President Trump has made very clear. Huckabee clarifies that when people say Trump wants the war to end at any cost, that defies what he has said repeatedly. The fact that he would like the war to end, so would I, and so would you. There's no one but Hamas that wants to keep it going, but it can't end with Hamas victory. He said it so well, so far, and this has been consistent. Don't listen to the fake news. The U.S. is behind Israel to take care of Hamas. And remember, it's been years and years in the making. The different Israeli leaders kicked the can down the road. Hamas is doing all these underground tunnels, bringing in all these munitions. And basically, Israel had no idea how complicated the system was, how very well designed it was. They thought there was possibly 100 miles of tunnels underneath Gaza. There's something like 500 miles of tunnels. They've only got about a third of them so far, destroyed. So it's a huge amount of work. They've been doing this since 2006. That is Hamas there in Gaza. What's that? 19 years, and they're still doing it. By the way, too. They're still digging tunnels even as they're being attacked. And so it's going to take some time. It's a long time in the making, long time in the destruction, but it will eventually be a peaceful area. We know that from scripture because eventually when the Ezekiel 38-39 invasion takes place, as we've been talking to you about this over and over again, what do we find? We find that Israel is at peace in both its northern and southern borders. It's not expecting any attack. It feels safe and secure when all of a sudden, boom, they get hit by this Russian-led invasion that will have Turkey and, of course, Iran as part of the surrogates. So that's what we're seeing right now. And again, all this is in the making. The stage continues to be set. And what we have to realize, too, is particularly in the Middle East, the timing is not something that can happen immediately. Some of these things take months, even years, but they are happening. The stage is being set, like we talk about here every day. And finally, this is a fantastic story. If true, headline 6, Erdogan not planning on another term as president of Turkey. It's from Israel HaYom. During a flight from Hungary, the Turkish president told reporters he would not run in the upcoming presidential election, but remained adamant about pushing through a new constitution. His political standing has plummeted following the imprisonment of Ankara's mayor and a prolonged economic crisis. The mayor of Ankara was going to run for president against him. So what does Erdogan do? He throws him in jails. That kind of kills that, doesn't it? That's who this dictator is. Erdogan has wanted to be not just the president of Turkey. He wants to be the Sultan, the big deal, almost of like the former empire that they had once, the Ottoman Empire that ruled for 400 years in that part of the world. He sees Turkey getting back to its glory days as he's the leader. So it's interesting. He said he's not going to run for president. He says he doesn't want to run for another presidential term. He said he was responding to questions about his efforts to pass a new constitution, which critics say would entrench presidential powers and weaken the opposition. We're not seeking a new constitution for ourselves, but for the country as a whole, Erdogan said in the in-flight interview. The Turkish president also addressed developments in Syria, warning the new regime in Damascus that it must deal with the Kurdish issue in the country's northeast, something that Erdogan and Turkey have been fighting for an awful long period of time. Now, Turkey is essential in this whole situation. They are there, the country is right above Syria. They're the closest to Israel with respect to the ones that are going to invade, closer than Iran, of course, closer than Russia. And they have this adventurism going on, and they're not going to give this up. So when he says he's not going to run for president, maybe just like Putin, you get these new presidential powers. He doesn't have to. He's president for life. We will see. Fantastic, interesting things going on. Never a dull moment. Again, the stage is being set day by day, moment by moment, from what the Bible says is going to happen at the time of the end. And we watch it here and bring it to you. And who knows what's going to happen next. And so, again, we'll just take it a day at a time. I'm Don Stewart. Thanks for watching. And as always, until next time, may the Lord richly, richly bless.